I'm Nikki Kenyatta-Lewis, and welcome to Religion Today. Our focus is to inform the viewing audience about the many varied religions in our world. We want to give information on their doctrine as well as their history. Without knowledge of history, religion cannot be truly understood. Many of the world's religions are practiced right here in Northeast Ohio. Our guest today is CJones, who is a high priest of the religion of Ifa. As well, Carl is the owner of CJones Books and Tea on Coventry and Cleveland Heights. Ifa is Yoruba, which is a West African religion. This will be the topic of our discussion today. Welcome, Carl.
Well, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you for being here. We're glad to have you.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Now, can you tell me, where did the religion of Ifa originate?
It has a lot of legend connected to it, but from some points of view, it was said that it became into existence as people migrated from East Africa, the southern Sudan region, or old Egypt, maybe even in pre-sand times, across Africa, and along the way it grew and expanded itself into what is now called Ifa and Orisha. Okay. So it's how old is it? It's 10,000 years old?
Oh, wow.
5,000? It depends on who's counting, and when the old boys in West Africa refer to it as in those days.
Okay.
You know, things were different in those days.
As sometimes we say,
right,
back in the
day.
Back
in the day,
right,
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, can you explain to us, I said that Ifa is Yoruba, which is West African. Can you explain, is there a difference between Ifa and Yoruba, or how do we understand?
Well, Yoruba are the people themselves. Okay. You know, there are the Yorubas, there are the Igbos, there are the Hausa, and there are several other subgroups within the state of Nigeria, which is now Nigeria. The Yorubas are probably the dominant group at this point in terms of numbers, you know, so the religion is sometimes mistakenly referred to as Yoruba. Yorubas now in West Africa practice mostly Christianity and Islam. And there's an anecdote about that, which is that during the day, everybody is either a Christian or a Muslim, but at night they all go see the Babalao, you know, for their problem. Yes. So. Can
you explain, first of all, what does the word Ifa mean? Is there?
It's just the name of
okay.
It's its own name. It is its thing. It's its own thing.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. It's just the name of one part of the several versions of several different types of religions that actually are practiced under one umbrella.
Oh, I see.
Okay, Orisha is a separate thing than Ifa, so Ifa is nominally the top group, you know, and it's so silly to say it that way, but you know, if there was a hierarchy, Ifa would be the top of the hierarchy, and Orisha would be then slightly under it, and then there are different types of animistic type traditions also, which are there.
Okay. When you say animistic, why don't you explain to our
well,
audience?
You know, more where people just directly will worship a particular tree or a particular type of tree or something, but usually that even gets subsumed into the Ifa and Orisha tradition also. So it's just how it is.
How do you think that this religion spread from West Africa to the United States? I mean, there's some obvious things that we might think of, but from your understanding.
It spread really from the time of the slave trade, when Ifa priests were known to have jumped into the water and swam out to the slave ships to join the people on the ships as they went to Cuba.
Okay.
And from Cuba, they basically left the slavery and went up into the mountains of Matanzas and developed a religion that was more indigenous to this region called Lucami, which was known in Cuba. And out of Lucami came Santeria, which was when the Lucami moved into Havana, and the Spanish began to interface with it. And then from there, people began to go back, probably in the late 50s. African Americans began to go back to Africa to discover their roots. And along the way, a man named Osurgeman became the king of a village in South Carolina called Oyatunje Village, and that was probably the real beginning of the African and American connect to Ifa.
I remember
Probably.
hearing about that village,
Right.
yes.
Yeah.
So, okay, so it sounds like this is very widespread, not just here in America and in West Africa.
Oh
from
no,
what you're
all
saying.
throughout South America.
Wow.
In Brazil, for instance, it's now the version of Ifa and Orisha practiced in Brazil now has more adherents than the Catholic Church does.
Wow. Okay.
And its connection is directly through West Africa and stuff. It's very fascinating.
I hope you don't mind. You mentioned
No, no.
Santeria. Would you say that this religion has some connection into Vodou, what people call
yeah, absolutely.
Voodoo? Okay.
Right, yeah. There are elements of this are all the same. Okay, the Vodou has gotten such a bad
It has.
perspective. It's actually a very interesting religion. I've participated several times in their peristyle ceremony,
Okay.
which is the Radha and Petro
Okay.
dance where you move around the what they call the peristyle, which
Okay, I'm not.
goes on for 12 hours. Okay, that's all.
Sounds pretty
Very
interesting.
very interesting. It's a whole other subject. though,
Okay.
You
Okay.
know.
Well, then, how would you, for our viewing audience to understand Ifa, how would you describe it? What is it exactly?
Ifa is essentially the culture of a people. You know, it's culture itself. It has an organization, a hierarchy, a corpus of material, rules, regulations, and everything. It has abilities to, well, basically on some levels, perform miracles even. I'm not pushing that part of it. But it's how people interact, and they use Ifa to help interact or help fix their lives, help their lives follow a path that's true to their birth. It has to do. In the West, the best thing to say about Ifa and the Orisha is that it allows us an opportunity to correct the life that got started. Okay. Because if we think that we all have a particular destiny in our life or a path that we're to follow, we don't know what that is, and so by the time we begin to think in those terms, we see that we can't be on that trajectory or on that path. And the way the Ifa works is you receive, let's say for instance, an Orisha for your head and an Orisha for your feet. But they don't necessarily just mean your head, but this whole area is known as the head, your ori ini, your inner brain. And then your feet are how you present yourself into the world. If you're a teacher, that would be, your feet would be who would be providing you the impetus for that, the Orisha that did that. For example, my head is Obatala, and my feet are Oshun. So my inner world is highly intellectual, but my outer world appears to most folks as highly sensual. Okay. But I'm more intellectual, so it does cause some confusion sometimes.
Okay, now that's interesting because I heard you, before we got started saying Orishas, and my understanding is that the Orishas are, I think the best way for us in the West to understand, we kind of look at them as gods. Is that how you would view Orishas? I've heard the name Oshun before,
right.
Of course.
Well, in the first place, it's misunderstood that Ifas and the Orisha tradition are polytheistic. Okay, they're not. The Yorubas believe in one God, which is Olodumare, and the Olodumare created everything, including the Orishas. Okay. The Orisha are there to help human beings, no different probably than, they've been syncretized in some traditions with guardian angels and stuff like that. So, but in Ifa, the line goes basically this way, which is Orumila Ela Rini Pini Bikeji Oludamare, and more to that. But basically means that Orumila, who is the head of the Ifa is Orumila, witnessed creation. Ifa says that there cannot be anything without a witness. So if there's no witness, it doesn't really exist. Okay, so God, Olodumare, created Orumila out of pure spirit, which is Ela, in order to witness creation. And that gave Orumila the power of divination, in a sense, because he knew the beginning and he knew the end of everything already. Okay. Since at the beginning, a beginning can only begin out of an end. Mm. And so since he was at the beginning, he was also at the end.
Oh,
okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So the metaphysics of this are quite extraordinary. Mm-hmm.